right. There. All right, getting ready to go live. Start the show. You guys ready? I'm ready. As soon as I get the network up and running. And come on, come on, satellite, do your thing. Come on. Yep, I got you ready. There we go. We're on the air. Hey guys, it's Outdoors Dan interrupting regular programming. It is time for Unknown Files. Tonight we got a flash of beauty paranormal Bigfoot. It's going to be a fun show, so I hope you hang in and listen to the program. And I'd like to welcome everybody that's joining us for this regular time for the Unknown Files show tonight as well. Let's get this thing rocked. You ready? Let's light this candle. All right, welcome to this week's edition of the Unknown Files. We got a beautiful one for you tonight, folks. We're going to be talking about the big fella. That's right. One of my favorite subjects, as you know. And we got some really special people on the air tonight as well with us as well. I'm going to bring them on the line right now. And we're going to go say hi to Brett and Tobe. And they are the crew from A Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot. It's going to be coming to a theater or to a location near you here in a couple weeks. Hi, fellas. How's it going?
Good. How's it going, Dan?
It's going. First off, Tobe, my wood watcher, says to say hi.
Hey, Dan. I'm live now watching your feed here. I see you put a picture. Thanks for doing that.
No, well, you're welcome. Yeah, actually, he's right there by the logo. Huh? I get more compliments on that, Tobe, when people come down to visit and stuff. They go, "Where did you get that at?" I said, "This guy on the West Coast. His name's Tobe. Man, he's awesome." So yeah, he'll always hang there. Hey, you guys, I want to thank you first of all. You've made my summer way more enjoyable with A Flash of Beauty, the podcast. And folks, if this is the first time you're listening to the show, I know we got a bunch of people on the network right now listening. First time listening, welcome. I found or discovered Tobe, I'm going to say about 2 years ago when I was out filming Respect the Game TV, sitting in a tree for 12, 13 hours. You get bored sometimes, and I love listening to podcasts. And I came across this wonderful, really well done podcast called Strange Brow Radio. And I started listening to it, and Tobe was the host and producer and owner and main sweeper-upper of that wonderful program. And he did an amazing job. I tell him that all the time. And since then, he has collaborated with Brett and Jill, and they started with A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, which is a doc that came out. Guys, was that 2 years ago?
Year ago, about a year and a half ago.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. All right. So wonderful, wonderful film. If you have not seen that documentary, please go check that out. If you love the phenomenon, if you want to hear from some really good people, we've had several of these people on that program on Unknown Files, just down to earth, super really nice people. I encourage you to go watch that. But just from they've been taking those people that were in the documentary, and they've been doing weekly podcasts with them and going into more depth. And Tobe, I'll tell you this again. I don't care what you do the rest of your life. You are a very talented craftsman, and I know you do some other great things, but you should be doing broadcasting full time for a living. I enjoy your content, man.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Who knows what will happen in the future here. Flash of Beauty has been a full-time gig as far as the podcast and everything else. So we may stretch our wings with season 2. In fact, I know we will. It's just, what happens after that, I don't really know.
Yeah, go check the podcast out, folks. They're really, really good to listen. Brett and Jill are on there, as well as, please forgive me, your cinematographer's name is Mike. Am I remembering that right?
Mike Ferry. He's out in the audience right now. Wait, Mike.
Hey, Mike. How's it going, Mike? All of you do a great job, and I love the energy that you bring to the shows, and you've made my summer way better. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
And I also have to say thank you to one more thing. I started doing this show in January. I've been doing hunting and fishing shows for 26 years now on terrestrial radio, and I'm living proof that mediocrity can make it. And I've always loved the paranormal or Bigfoot and ghosts and stuff like that. And this show has been a really good pleasure. I don't make a nickel doing the show. I do it out of guilty pleasures. But I have learned so much since January from you guys. And I want to thank you for that, because with having Daryl on and Mel Skahan and Mark Parker, some of the other people that you guys had featured in your documentaries, it's amazing what I've learned this year. So thank you.
Wow, thank you. That's a huge compliment. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, that's just the way it is. So I got a chance to look at the new film. Tony, how you doing, buddy? Laura, good to see you. There's Toby. Hey, Tobe, how you doing, Tobe? I got a chance to check out the new doc, and I got to tell you, it just blew my mind. Tobe, listen, you and I both were in the service. We're both in the medical side of things, but I couldn't understand half of what that guy was trying to tell me on that screen. It's like, oh my gosh. And I had to go back and watch it 2 or 3 times so I could start to get it. But some of that stuff is just mind-blowing.
Are you referring to the stuff that happened at the Al Moon lab, or just the...
Well, I'll let you talk about Al Moon. I'm talking about the gentleman that the gentleman that was narrating about the electrical balls on the quantum side, and it's like quantum. I'm sitting there going, okay, my 3rd grade education just ain't cutting this one. I got to go back and listen to that again. It just that was truly amazing.
Brett, I mean, I really feel like you found Simeon. I mean, I know Simeon is just in the ether. We're talking about author Simeon Hein, author of Dark Matter Monsters. And Brett, you just kind of take it away with him.
Yeah, well, the thing about all of this paranormal stuff is we keep saying, throughout the beginning of the production of this film, the collection of films, the 2 films, we kept saying, there's got to be there's a science behind this. There's a science behind ghosts and UFOs and Bigfoot and everything else, because we're believers. We're beyond trying to prove whether they exist or not. We're beyond that, because we've seen enough to convince us. And so it's like, now let's get to the science. Let's figure that out. And it's kind of a funny story. I read this. There's a kind of a website app called Medium, and it's they're articles that people just kind of if they're proficient in that particular skill or what have you, they submit articles, or an expert in that particular arena. And so one day I got an email, and because I'd read paranormal articles in the past, this email said, you might be interested in this article. And I ended up reading this article about Simeon Hein, and he laid it out about dark matter monsters and how quantum physics and stuff could be behind all of this crazy stuff we're seeing. And this had already been implanted in our minds through Ron Moorhead and the quantum Bigfoot. And we, when I say we, I think Tobe and Jill and Mike and I, we all really gravitated towards, that idea and some of the theories that Ron was presenting. And Simeon really backed that up, with hard science. And so I thought, we've got to have him in our film. I mean, this is the kind of the message I want to get across to people, because there's a lot of folks out there, I think, that kind of get really into the folklore side of things and or thinking that this could be demonic or this could be something evil that's happening. And I'm trying to pull the curtain back from behind the wizard. And if you remember the Wizard of Oz, he was very intimidating. He had like a green face, and he scared everybody and controlled everybody. But it was the little guy behind the curtain. He wasn't intimidating at all. And I think that once we really start understanding the science behind all of this, we can kind of start pulling back the veil. And really quick, I'll finish up here. People have said to me, they said, well, you get rid of the mystique when you do that. There's not mystique. And I'm like, no. You don't get it. If the paranormal were a skyscraper, then Bigfoot would be the doorman. And you can go up as many floors as you want to in that skyscraper. Mm-hmm. And so there's always going to be a mystique. The universe is way too vast and wide and crazy for there not to be more mysteries to try and unravel. But this is just peeling away one layer at a time.
Yeah, for everybody watching on Facebook Live too, if you got questions for Brad or Tobe, just message. And I had to switch. I love Facebook. I had to switch from my Dan Young profile, which we've been doing for like 2-3 years now. For some reason, all of a sudden, I did an update, and it's like, okay, I can't see my messages anymore. People aren't able to go real time. So I had to go to the outdoor call page. So we're probably going to miss a few, but I'll replay it. Larry, what's going on? Good to see you. Thank you. If you all have questions, just let me know, and I'll make sure we get them in for you too. So, but one thing that you guys have done, which I didn't think was ever going to be to do, and I don't know if Tobe and I talked about this when Tobe's so busy, and I'm trying to do 6-7 radio shows a week now. My retention's gone, but there's so many different factions of this stuff. You have the flesh and blood, and then you have the woo, and then you have 2 or 3 others that I don't even want to try to pronounce because I'll mess them up. But and then you got the quantum side. Ron Moorhead does a wonderful job with the quantum analytical side of it. You guys have done something that I think you should be very proud of yourselves, because I think you've merged with this new documentary, the way you've presented it. I think you've given a good argument where people can come together and not be so divisive. And I really was impressed with that, guys.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I know Tobe can talk more about this too, but I just want to say that the idea is to really bring the two sides together and get folks to say, you know what, there is something else that's unexplained happening here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't want to divide anybody. That's not what it's about. That's not what science is about, really. We need to get together and share all of our data so we can begin to kind of put together the puzzle. If we're putting together a jigsaw puzzle, we can't have pieces across the room and expect results. We need to come together as a team, share data, be open, and talk about what it is we've seen and experienced.
Yeah. Hey, Robert, good to see you tonight, buddy. Thank you for that. Amy, I had Amy on the other day. You know who I'm talking about? Our
Amy Boo.
Yeah, Amy Boo. She's just a delight. And I'm kind of in the same category as Amy. We're very, very energetic or enthusiastic about this subject, but we're still kind of open. We're open-minded, but we're still asking a lot of questions. And I have not had the experience that you guys have either. So if I saw some of the stuff that I seen, here's the thing, Brett. I mean, just listening to Tobe's strange brow stuff for the past 3 or 4 years, with him talking about the Al Moon and Daryl and some of the Rich Germo and some of these other folks, I've kind of had the more of the backstory. So when I see it with what you guys have done with A Flash of Beauty, it's kind of coming full circle for me, and it's like, man, I don't think I understood that like I should have, and that makes a lot of sense now. I really appreciate that.
Cool, very cool.
Does that make sense, Tobe?
Well, yeah. I mean, just getting back to what you were saying, what Brett was saying about trying to merge these two worlds together.
Yeah.
They're already merged, but unfortunately, it takes a bar to get these guys to loosen up to talk about the weirder stuff.
That's why you were always cracking a beer, right? Okay.
Yeah. I'm tired of paying everyone's bar tab to get the weird stories. So now we have Brett, Jill, and Mike kind of moving. They've upped the film game about Bigfoot to the nth degree. It's a cinematic masterpiece. The first 10 minutes of this documentary are damn near like a poetic ceremony. It's just one of the most stunning 10 minutes that I've ever had watching a doc, and then it moves into, these are all true stories that are truly bizarre. And when the truly bizarre is discussed, it has to be done honestly and openly, and then to back it up with the fact that a lot of these guys have never been on film. They've never been to any of these Sasquatch conferences. They've never done podcasts. They're new faces, but they are. What they're saying is no different than what I've heard the last 18 years. Is that yes, as Barb Shoop so matter-of-factly puts in her teasers that Bigfoot can do this, they can do this, they can do this, and they can do this.
Yeah.
And that's really it. It's a calling card to say, hey, let's move this conversation over to this uncomfortable area here, just to pick up all these puzzle pieces that Brett's talking about.
Hey, Tyler, thank you tonight. I appreciate you watching. No, I think that's spot on. I just but I listen from just talking to or just listening to some of the other stuff out there. I mean, there's some people that they're just diehard. They're apes. That's what they are. They're not an advanced hominid. They're and it's like I see that wall there. And it's not they're not willing to come off of it. But I think one of the things that really took me from being a diehard skeptic. I've been bow hunting for 35 years. I've been all over this country filming. I mean, I've seen every kind of critter and every kind of track and everything. And I've never seen anything. So that's why I was more of a skeptic, even though I love the subject. I mean, there's nothing that I have not been able to see, cut a trail, or identified a sound. I knew what that was just because I grew up for the last 50-something years with woodsmanship skills. But saying that, when I heard Tobe start talking about Dr. Melbourne, Jeff, talking about him and some of the track evidence, and and then I started listening to some of these other these accredited scientists that are saying, well, these dermal ridges could not have been faked in the 50s. Okay, that moved me up the ladder from skeptic to more open-minded, because as a medic, I can understand that, and anatomically, nobody was out there with a wood-cut footprint that would have dermal ridges or abnormalities in the foot structure. So so that took me up. But then listening to Tobe with when he was out there with Daryl and the Owl Moon and some of the recordings, and Tobe, I'm going to let you talk about the knee stuff if we can talk about that. I told Brett I don't want to give too much away, but when Tobe sent me those pictures a year and a half ago, when he found those knees castings, and he found the hairs, and then he found Tobe, what was the term you used that had the lines of the hair lines into the dirt? What was that called? You could see the hair markings.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you could see the hair flow, you could see bone, you could see musculature flowing into this red clay. And, at the time, we really didn't know what we were looking at. They appeared to be the shape of the patella of the knee pushing down into the mud. And here we are, 2018, we found those. So over 3 years later, we have some confirmation that, yes, in fact, they're knees. I think I've already talked about it, so I'm not breaking any code with the documentary. But, it's plus or minus 1,400 pounds, according to a Boeing engineer, based upon the weight displacement. We don't know if it's a right knee stepped into the mud twice. It could very well just be a double right knee and not a left and right knee. We just don't know because the left one's degraded. The point is that once we brought these massive plaster impressions down to Daryl's house, and like so many people have said before, including Native American Mel Skahan, that when you bring biologicals, let's just make it larger, biologicals of the paranormal, that's exactly what we brought. There's consequences to that. And Mel talked about the consequences of bringing hair back to its place. Well, these knee impressions were coated in hair. And that's when things got strange at the property. Now, were they going to get strange anyway, regardless whether or not we found these knees? I kind of think they might have. It's just the knees seem to be, we thought they'd come back as a cow or a bear. You see us in the video, just like, could these be anything other than, giant human-looking knees?
Yeah.
And they just didn't come back with that evidence. They came back with, anomalous hair attached to them with a weight displacement that was way too large for human. And so that's where the story begins, but by no means is it where it ends.
No, I mean, you had such crazy stuff going out there with the recordings, and some of the stuff that you had recorded inside that maintenance building was unbelievable. That's where you need to go back to the podcasts and stuff, folks, to listen to some of that, because I don't think that. I mean, I know you guys showed some video of stuff that happened around in the dock, but I don't think you had the recordings in there. So
Yeah.
is that
Well,
right?
and the books too. You know, Tobe can also talk about the book as well.
Yeah, you got that Al Moon Lab book that's got the QR codes, and people can actually go and listen to all and watch that stuff, right, Tobe?
Yeah. So, I just re-released the book. It's an expanded edition, including a soundtrack that I wrote, so people can go on Spooky Night Drive and listen to the same album.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's got QR codes in there. So, as the evidence unfolds at this property, we were recording everything. So you can go to the QR codes of the chapter, and you can actually hyperlink the video, audio, photographic evidence.
Okay. Hey, Brett, I'm going to echo what Tobe said too. The first 5, 6, 7 minutes of that opening is awesome.
Thank you.
It was really, really well done. I thought that was incredibly well done. So.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that.
Okay.
In fact, as a matter of fact, a real quick story. Elaine Miles is the narrator in the opening of the film. She's the Native American woman who's the narrator, and I've been a fan of Elaine's for years. She started in Northern Exposure.
Yeah, she was Maryland and Northern Exposure,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. She was most recently in a show on HBO Max called The Last of Us. There's an episode of that, and I kept, I kind of recorded a voice and stuff, but I wasn't happy with it. I kept going back to Jill. I was like, I really want Elaine Miles, but she might be impossible to get. So, long story short, I reached out to her, and she happens to live in Seattle. So I said, "Would you be interested in doing this?" And she says, "Yeah." And my son is a huge Bigfoot fan.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's more excited about this than anything. And so we drove up to Seattle, and I'm not going to get too into this, but we sat down and we talked for half an hour before recording their narration.
Yeah.
And she says, I saw one, right? I mean, no. She'd had a really clear daylight sighting.
That's awesome.
So she was already a believer. We had no clue, no idea. So yeah, just a little trivia there.
All right, for the folks that are listening tonight, that when they've never heard any of the vocalizations, or they've never heard sounds that we've talked about in the past on the show, I wanted to save this for Tobe. Daryl was nice enough to send me some stuff that he recorded, and Tobe, I'm sure you were right there on some of this stuff. The tree knocks and the midnight howler. You familiar with those?
Yeah. Well, there's 1,400 hours worth of audio. We scrambled through a lot of it.
Yeah.
You play it, and I'll talk about it.
All right, let's just talk about tree knocks, because when I've had Mel on, Mel's talked about when he was out doing his job in the Forestry Service, he heard tree knocks all the time. If you're not familiar with what a tree knock sounds like, this is what came off of Daryl's property that Tobe was helping to investigate. This is what they got. That's a tree knock, Tobe.
Well, is it though? I mean, it definitely sounds like wood on wood, and that's what it sounds like when you hear it.
Yeah.
And we've heard those sounds in the middle of the day, less than 30, 40 yards away from us, back in the Al Moon Wilderness. I don't know what those sounds are. There's not a lot of witnesses that have seen Sasquatch carrying a Louisville Slugger around. That's what it sounds like.
Well,
it sounds like a Sasquatch hitting the side of a tree with a Louisville Slugger.
I can tell you this: it's not two elk banging together, or two black-tailed deer fighting. I can tell you that. Do I know unequivocally what it is? No, I can't answer that. But if that's what a tree knock is supposed to sound like, I believe you guys recorded that, because that's probably one of the most pronounced ones I've ever heard, to be honest with you.
Well, as mentioned in the documentary, I think there's a lot of misnomers about what Sasquatch can do.
Yeah.
And, I'm leaning on the theory that that's not so much wood on wood, but that might be the displacement of energy happening. And maybe it's delivered in a way that we have kind of pareidolia of the ear and say, oh, that sounds like a Louisville Slugger hitting a home run. I'm not so sure that's what it is. I think there might be something way more magical going on with that sound. I get into the, in the book as far as why I think that, but there's some out of the box thinking that needs to go on when talking about this stuff.
So when you guys talk about infrasound, you know how elephants project that when they roar, that infrasound, it's got that stunning effect. I know you guys cover some of this stuff, but Tobe, could that be that sort of thing?
Well, infrasound is below hearing. I think you have to have certain type of sound equipment, right, Brett, in order to even detect it.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood that. I thought that was it was something that you could actually hear, but you could also feel.
Well, it's more something you can feel.
Okay, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's why.
And infrasound has been weaponized by the military and police forces for crowd dispersement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty sophisticated. There's a faction of it that's called the brown noise or the brown note. And don't let your imagination run wild, but it basically causes discomfort among crowds.
Yeah.
Let me mention this too,
sound
real
can do
quick.
a lot.
Dan, just to mention this real quick, the ongoing activity of wood knocks is now going into the world of paranormal research based upon some of the work that Doug Heichek's son is doing up, I believe, in your neck of the woods, Blaine Heichek.
Yeah.
And so he took an EMF meter out into a Bigfoot area, and they sure as heck got a wood knock sound, but the EMF meter spiked out at 10. So why is an EMF meter discharging based upon what you displaced? It shouldn't at all.
It should.
That's something that people need to really look into and lean into. Is the weirder answer.
Yeah, that really shouldn't have an electrical field or not electrical reading, right?
Mm-mm.
No, because it's not emitting an EMF field. A piece of wood, is it?
Not on this planet.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be. But it's the idea of that something is disturbing the air. Like thunder is caused by the ultra cooling of the air after a bolt of lightning.
Right.
It's that's where we get thunder from, and so it's the same kind of idea.
I got you. Well, Tobe and I have talked about this before. Predators, animals can detect other animals' EMF fields. I mean, that's a proven. That's not a hypothesis. That's an actual proven fact. And I'll just tell you this, and folks, all the folks that listen to me on the hunting side, I don't know how many times over the years I've had the wind in my face, which is what you want when you're bow hunting. You want the wind because we're trying to get that animal within 25 yards and closer. So we're trying to beat one of the best noses and the best eyes and ears in the world as far as defenses. But we emit an EMF field every time we move. Even if we just move an inch or two, our muscles it produces an EMF signature, and those animals can see that. That's why there's a company called Hex out on the West Coast. I think it's in Oregon or Washington. It's out there somewhere. They came up with a grid pattern that was sort of like the same stuff that was in your microwave. So it would stop that EMF field from getting through that screen, and they made clothing out of it. Actually, divers wear it to keep their EMF away from sharks. So sharks have amples of Lorenzini, little dips and stuff in their noses, and that's called amples of Lorenzini. They can detect minute electrical fields through that sense, and those Hex wetsuits helps block that from the sharks because that's how they hunt. But I mean, if you go out in the woods and you see a deer, the wind's blowing and the trees are moving, the deer could care less. It doesn't bother them. But if you move, their head pops right up because they see that EMF field. So I think what you were saying, Tobe, I'm leaning towards agreeing with you on the direction you were going on there.
I'm gonna drag you over to the woo side, dude.
No, that's real hunting science, man. That's not woo. That's it's not woo. It's true.
We got him wearing a tinfoil hat. He's calling it a hex, dude. I love it.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's real stuff, man. It works.
Right.
Gosh, there's so many things I want to ask you guys, but we're not doing any commercials tonight. I'm keeping these guys for the full hour. We're not going to do a commercial break. So this show is brought to you by the fine folks at Reveled. They are the official spirit of the Unknown File Show. If you want to have a nice cocktail or celebration, go see Revelton in Osceola, Iowa. Thank you guys. But no, the stuff when you get into the fields, and I'm trying to stay vague here, Brett, but when you get into this in the documentary, it's fascinating stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's kind of like the entire documentary is kind of like the tip of the iceberg, you know.
Yeah.
And I say that based on what I've left on the cutting room floor, you know. Even Simeon was next to impossible to edit. It took me forever because what Dr. Hine had to say was, and I tried to simplify it as much as possible, and he did a great job of trying to simplify it. But, you know, it doesn't matter what story that's being told in the film or what Simeon's saying or anything else. What you're getting is you're getting you're getting the highlights.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of these stories are even weirder than we have the time to give them, which is unfortunate. But we will hopefully be putting out the entire interviews at some point in the future so folks can really get the whole story.
I can't wait for the second round of podcasts. I really can't. Tobe, folks, if you want to hear what a Bigfoot this was recorded out in Tobe, was it the Owl Moon Lab or was this out at Daryl's place? The Howler.
Well, you know, the Owl Moon Lab and the Owl Moon Wilderness. The wilderness is the woods behind his house, so
okay.
It's all the same. Just the Owl Moon.
Okay, all right. This is something Daryl and Tobe got on their investigations. This is the Midnight Howler. Yeah, that would kind of give me. Yeah, and how when I talked to Daryl, he said that they heard that stuff all the time.
Yeah. So you know when in the book I talk about these extended experiencers, Sasquatch contactees, I think is the new nomenclature that I use.
Mm-hmm.
And these people have the weirder stuff to talk about, including visuals, including tracks that don't make sense, like the ones we found that were embedded in the gravel down to the hardpan, finding gifts, and including language. And so, what you just played sounded pretty archaic. It didn't sound like there was anything defined in there as far as like cogent speech. But, when you start looking at the work, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's right. That's my lab raven. Sorry.
He understands what's going on.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Scott Nelson who's a Navy cryptolinguist that works with Ron Moorhead at the Sierra Sounds.
Yeah.
And what he's finding is that these more archaic sounds, when slowed down, have these morphine streams in them, which is basically the building blocks of human conversation and language. And so these sounds really need to be broken up and looked at and analyzed in a unique way to move in the direction I'd like to move. So, I don't remember that sound in particular with my own ears. I suppose Daryl probably recorded that from the back 40.
Okay.
But there's a lot of sounds, and we talk a little bit about it.
This is where he got the picture in the power cut. Does that help you?
Sure. Yeah. No. So that the power lines. Let's talk a little. We can't talk too much about it, but there's certainly some power lines brought up in this documentary. And what I will say is that power lines for hunters are unique opportunities to find animals feeding and take a clear shot.
Right.
No underbrush.
Right.
Easy to hunt.
Yep.
And then far too long, the flesh and blood community of Bigfoot has said, Bigfoot love power lines. It's access points for them to travel. Well, traveling in a different way than I think they have imagined. And we talk a little bit about that in the Owl Moon Lab, and we talk some more about that as well. But I will say that the power lines in general and Bigfoot, that's a mystery all in itself, because it's not just Bigfoot visiting power lines, it's also UFOs. And what the hell are UFOs doing over Bonneville power lines? What are they doing over nuclear reactors?
Yeah.
These are sensitive military installations that they're hovering over. And Bigfoot's no different. In my opinion, and maybe Brett, you take this to the next level, Bigfoot really is a type of an alien. And as outrageous as that comment is, the things that they can do are just not something that you can mount on the wall. It takes a wood watcher to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys kind of discussed some of this stuff in some of the interviews in the doc. So, yeah, there's two delightful young ladies that, well, they're not. They're nice ladies, and they kind of go into the history of of Bigfoot or the woodsman, or they go into the culture, how this is transcended over thousands of years. I believe,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I believe there was even a painting that showed, something that's biblically important to a lot of folks. I'll
Hmm.
leave it at that, Brett. I'm trying.
That's gonna stir up some folks,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you can see it. You
yeah,
can see it. And just to tease it a little bit more, it is part of the Sistine Chapel.
yeah,
So this one's hard to argue.
yeah.
Um,
Rob Taylor,
yeah.
good to see you, Rob. Thank you for watching tonight and listening. Hank, thank you. I appreciate you as well. Go ahead, Tobe. I apologize.
Oh no, I wasn't really going to say anything except that the painting that Brett's describing, it's one of many,
Yeah,
and the idea of looking into the ancient wild man or the green man, you can look at reliefs, you can go find these same images with UFOs in the background. So these stories persist for a long time. The Native Americans have been trying to tell us for since the beginning. At least I got into this, that Sasquatch is to either not to be looked into at all, and if you do look into it, understand that there's consequences because they walk between two worlds.
yeah.
And I think that that's the truth.
Well, there's a reverence there.
Yeah.
There's a reverence there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a spiritual, and that's one of the things that I picked up on really quick with talking with Mel and the gentleman that I told you guys about in Minnesota that I got to visit with when I was up there walleye fishing. Go ahead, Brett. You were going to jump in.
Well, I was just going to jump in real quick and say that a lot of these things, just like the example that we were using at the Sistine Chapel,
Yeah.
it's a lot of these things have been right in front of our faces and hidden in plain sight, I guess you could say. And part of what we're trying to do with this documentary is call attention to them and say, look, not only are there giants in the Bible, but there are some sort of an ape man or ape figure in other religions as well.
Yeah.
Bring that out.
Yeah.
But it's getting harder and harder to deny that there is a huge portion of history that's been kept from us, and then we start asking why and who's in control and what's next. But it's like I think in today's modern day, it's very hard. It's very easy for us to write off a lot of these things as legends and myths, and that's kind of what happened with Bigfoot and Sasquatch. Was folks thought, well, the native peoples, they have these legends and these myths, but when you really think about it, I mean, these are individuals that have been occupying North America for 20,000 years.
Right.
In fact, Oregon has the oldest early man site in North America. They're finding out right now. It's about 18. I've personally been there on a shoot. So there is sure there's a mythology there that is pure mythology, but there's also some reality in that mythology.
Well, but they've always considered this more of a spiritual, or there's a spiritual side as far from what I'm getting from the people that I've talked to, the native, it can be a flesh and blood, but it can also be something spiritual as well. I mean, Tobe, you talk about portals and stuff like that. You've done that with Strange Brow and getting into this as well. Talking with Mel and talking with my friend up in Minnesota. I mean, when medicine men back in the Native Americans throughout the generations, they would go and establish their villages. They would find energy. They would seek or sense energy portals or something energy there. And that's where they would always establish their villages. And then,
well, yeah, I mean, I was speaking to a neighbor of mine who's a water witcher, a dowsing rod expert. He doesn't even use dowsing rods; he uses a willow branch.
Mm-hmm.
So that ability to walk around in a field and be able to find a spring with a willow branch is something that is an ancient technique. It's a tool that has been used for them to find water. what is that ability? What are we forgetting here along the way? I mean, we've forgotten. Everyone has deja vu. Deja vu is such a powerful psychic event that yet we play it off as just like this 2-second hiccup.
Yeah,
so we're forgetting these latent abilities that I think Sasquatch is totally tuned in with.
Well, yeah. Well, and it's just, here's the thing. If you look at it as a flesh and blood creature that's all over North America and other continents, they're not just here in North America. I mean, they're all over. I mean, there's been sightings and reports in Australia. I mean, they're all over the world. I didn't know this, but is it Scott Taylor out there in your neck of the woods, guys? You know who I'm talking about? Works for BFRO.
Well, actually, he's the guy that did the weight measures for me on the
Okay.
news.
Yeah, I talked to Scott. Really nice guy, good bow hunter. I love talking bow hunting with him. He was telling me a little bit in Iowa. There's been over. I looked up what I could find, and there was been like 9 to 12 or 13 reports of sightings in Iowa over the last 30, 40 years. He said there's actually over 109 because he goes back into the flats. The things that nobody else can see except if you're an investigator, if I'm understanding this correctly. But he went back in there and told me that there's way more documented sightings and reports than what I was being led to believe. So, I mean, people are seeing stuff everywhere. I mean, it can't all be misidentifications. And when you get into what you guys are leading to in this documentary, it makes a little bit more sense about, well, they were there and then they weren't. And I'm trying not to elaborate too much, but you guys have people on there that are opposing things that I never would have thought of.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair?
Well, and I think it's perfectly fair, and I think that really the only way to explain the fact that we don't have a body is that they're simply not flesh and blood.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that they don't have a terrestrial body that they bury, and we've listened to or met numerous folks who have talked about how they do have burial ceremonies and whatnot, and they do bury their dead. And,
well, they take care of their own. Yeah.
They take care of their own.
Yeah.
But I think that, it's just that the way that they avoid camera traps, the way that they disappear in an instance, I think all of this helps explain why they're so elusive. Because otherwise, if they were total flesh and blood, I think we would have had them by now, long ago.
Well, Arlie Miller says, don't write off Bigfoot. There's one I know of in Reynolds. He wasn't seen, but we heard him pushing trees over and we saw the trees moving. That's from Arlie in Iowa. Yeah, thank you, Arlie. I appreciate you sharing that. I'm going to go back to Amy for a second. And I don't know about you guys, but one of the things that helped me become more open-minded, that woman's got a lot of guts.
Yes.
Anybody that could go to a deer classic, a deer hunting show, and set up a table to ask people about, have you seen Bigfoot? It takes guts. Because you're just opening yourself up for ridicule and snickers and everything else under the sun. And some of the stories that Amy, when we had her on the show, when she talked about people coming back, circling back and saying, can I talk to you for a minute? And visiting with her, Tobe, and they would just start crying, breaking out crying and shaking.
Mm-hmm.
How do you discount that? They're not selling anything.
No.
Those are real raw emotions.
No.
That's not a bear. I'll tell you that much. That's not a bear.
An outdoor show like you're talking about, Amy Boo did, that's where to do it. I mean, you guys are the alpha hunters. The bow hunter is the alpha hunter out there. You have to do too much, and you have one shot to do it. And so to get an interview or interaction one-on-one with a bow hunter that has a visual, and that's exactly what Brett did in part one of Flash of Beauty. We interviewed Mark Parker, who also came out to the Owl Moon Lab. Here you have a seasoned bow hunter that had a face-to-face, not only with Bigfoot, but with the paranormal. And so to watch that, evolution of understanding with someone like that, and Amy Boo, the same thing. These are real tears of frustration generally, because you have this community that discounts the event. And you have these hidden events. We talk about what a hidden event is in the doc. So, I encourage everybody to sit down with your sportsmen and get these stranger stories and don't ridicule them.
Yeah, go down to Reveled and have a cocktail and see if you can loosen them up a little bit and say, have you seen anything? You might be surprised. Okay, I'm going to play one more thing, and then I knew this hour was going to fly by. The screams, Tobe. The screams. How often did you guys hear screams out there when you were living out there with them?
Well, so, it was interesting. We had these Great Pyrenees dogs about 3/4 of a mile away down the Weyerhaeuser Road, and they would always alert us that things are about to get hairy, no pun intended. And that's when the screams would start, and it'd either be hot or not. So it was generally we'd get sounds like that every 3 to 5 days.
That's crazy. All right, folks, this is what they would classify as a scream.
Well, that was almost a scream.
Yeah. I can tell you right now, that's not a bear. And I don't believe I've heard bobcats and coyotes vocalize some really strange stuff. I have never heard anything like that.
Well, let's say that was someone up call blasting. That's the only thing I can attribute that to, is that was the sound someone recorded in a special area and played in a Bigfoot area to elicit activity. That's a possibility, because word got out that was a Bigfoot area. Yeah. In fact, I knew it was a Bigfoot area beforehand, since like 2008. So that's a possibility. However, those sounds came down to the house and interacted with the tape recorders at close range. We found all the consequential biological evidence and sightings and such. So that's a typical, what I would call like a siren howl of a Sasquatch. You can feel these howls as much as you can hear them. And so what is that? Especially if it's as far as away as it possibly was, a mile or greater on a mountain. Yeah.
Well, but here's the thing: when you get back to Ron's Sierra sounds, when you get the samurai chatter, and you get the difference, the linguists that you guys referenced, the humans are not able to make 6 or 7 of those sounds. We don't have the vocal cord capability, or we don't have the apparatus to make those vocalizations. So, and that's coming from a linguist that worked in the military. I mean, that guy's heard every kind of speech pattern there is. To me, that's another level of, okay, what do I make of that?
Brett, you want to talk about Scott? You had a chance to sit down with them and talk about language for a while.
I mean, I can certainly say that Scott has told us on multiple occasions that it is impossible to fake. Because there's so many different layers to the sounds that you're hearing. And I certainly cannot. I mean, Scott is an amazing expert, as you would have to be in order to be a naval cryptolinguist. Mm-hmm. But in so many words or less, he's just like, I am 110% convinced. And he had no skin in the game. His son said, "Dad, what does a Bigfoot sound like?" And he said, "Well, I don't know if Bigfoot exists, but let's go on Google and find out." And then he came across Ron Moorhead's sounds, and he became obsessed with them because they were unlike anything he had ever heard. And here's a guy that's fluent in, 4 or 5 different languages, including some of the more difficult languages like Farsi. Mm-hmm. So he's fully capable of what a human, lungs are capable of, what a vocal cord is capable of. Because, remember, a lot of languages around the world use different components of the throat, mouth, and tongue. So people are definitely capable, like Tuvalu throat singers. If people haven't heard them before, they sing in the very bottom of their throat. It's a very strange sound. But these Sasquatch Sierra sounds were unlike anything else that are on the planet. And if folks haven't heard them, if they haven't seen the first documentary, you can listen to them on Ron Moorhead's website. They're just kind of blood curdling.
Oh, it's and this is just with reel-to-reel recorders. I mean, this wasn't with anything digital. This was back in the 70s. They were packing this stuff in 7-8 miles on horses. You know,
Yeah.
it's
It's right there.
yeah. When I first met Tobe and started talking to Tobe, I asked him, I said, has anybody gotten anything that, of them trying to talk or communicate? He goes, I got something for you to listen to. And he sent me some of those links, and I sat there and listened to that for like 4 hours. I mean, I couldn't get over that. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, when you first hear them, you kind of want to write them off and that's where the name Samurai Chatter comes from.
Right.
It sounds like samurais or like dialogue from an old Japanese movie or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's so eerie about them is that they do sound so human. There's something about it that just instinctively or primordially kind of like checks that box in the back of your brain that there's something intelligent going on here.
Yeah, you guys are going to have something else coming up. We'll talk about that in the last couple of minutes. You got a new project coming out that's going to get more in depth on the sounds and stuff. So I'll let you set that up, Brett, and stuff. Tobe, I got to just tell you, the part with you and Daryl really got me. I actually went back and watched the documentary again just to rewatch what you and Daryl did. I thought that was awesome and kind of it was moving.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I'm serious. No,
Bigfoot bromance.
Yeah,
man, I'm telling you.
No, and I'm not trying to have a pun there because
Brett's checking boxes.
Yeah, no, I just thought that it was. You guys you spent so much. Let me qualify that statement. I'm perfectly happily married. Thank you. It's just you guys spent so much time there, and that was. Daryl had a lot of things going on there. The gifting, you guys went into the gifting way more than I ever knew that you guys did. Daryl sent me a video of where you guys went out and put peanut butter and stuff, and it's time lapsed, and the peanut butter just disappears. It's like the craziest stuff I've ever seen. You guys, and when he talks about his wife, and I don't want to get into everything and spill it, but when you guys get into that part, that was a very moving part of the documentary.
Dan, you get bonded to these guys like you are with a war buddy. It's a shame.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a shame to watch friendships dissolve when there's a really cool experience like this. Sometimes that happens. I know it happened with Travis Walton after the abduction. If you look at anybody that has a heightened sense of event that happened with a group or a partner, sometimes it just gets volatile because of human behavior. But Daryl and I, we just had a blast doing this. For us, it was the best damn time. And was all the gifting Bigfoot? No, I think we got some things wrong now and then. It takes time to kind of figure that out.
Yeah.
But man, oh man, the stuff that we put in the documentary, especially towards the end when we talk about what happened, kind of on one of my last real tours to the area, it's all true. It's all real, and it's actually timely.
Yeah. Well, and the part with Tara, I called Daryl just to say hi and told him he did a good job on what I got a chance to screen, and I said, I just want to tell you did a good job. And I'm just that part with Tara.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to spill the beans again, but that was fascinating, especially with what happened with you guys when you were setting all that up to do the recording.
So the Tara portion, I will get into a little bit because it was really fascinating. So we did the interview with Tara at the Owl Moon Lab, and I don't call that out in the interview, we don't call that out on camera, but we're sitting right there. And Tara and Jill and another friend, Brittany, were off in the woods kind of exploring and stuff like that while Mike and I were setting up lighting and setting up cameras and whatnot. And while we were doing that, we kept hearing weird noises. There was a vibe. I mean, there was always a vibe there at the Elmwood Wilderness, but there was a vibe that night that something was there. Something was around. And Mike and I could just feel it, man. We cut the air with it. It was thick. And we were hearing these weird noises that were almost like tree knocks or like something was being built. And we're out on National Forest Line. We're out in the middle of nowhere. BLM area, 10 miles from virtually anything. And we felt like there was something going on. And sure enough, we caught a couple of things on camera that are very surprising. And this isn't in the documentary, but I recently discovered a second camera angle of the same phenomenon.
Really?
Yeah, which confirms that what we caught wasn't an anomaly with any of the sensors or the camera.
Okay.
So I have that as well. So that was huge.
Did you? I'm going to ask you this because I went back and watched it several times. Did you see behind her that was like 6-7 feet up and moving? Did you see that?
No.
Okay, I'll tell.
You saw something.
I saw something. I'll tell you off there because I went back and watched it 2 or 3 times, and I'm going, well, that's one there, and I'll text you later. So
okay.
yeah. So but anyway, all right. Listen, we got 5 minutes left. When is this going to be released? A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Paranormal. When can people go watch this?
Okay, I've got 3 dates for you guys.
Okay.
September 1st is the pre-order. That's coming up in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Friday, September 1st is pre-order. We expect to be releasing the trailer that day, the full trailer. And then the film is going to make its world premiere on September the 6th in Vernal, Utah at Phenomenon.
Okay.
You guys, if anybody listening is within, 8 to 12 hours, 6 hours drive, whatever it is, an hour, or if you live in Vernal, come to Phenomenon. It's amazing. If you're into this stuff, you're going to meet lots of fun friends. I'm not affiliated with Phenomenon in any way, shape, or form, even though Tobe is emceeing it. It's amazing. There's going to be the who's who. Look it up. Come out. Come see our world premiere. Come say hi to us. So we'll be doing 2 screenings on September the 6th, and then October 17th is when the film will be released, virtually worldwide.
Okay, so they can go to any streaming service, or are they going to be in mainstream theaters or streaming services? How can they get it, Brad?
It will be similar to the way that A Flash of Beauty Bigfoot Revealed was out. So you'll be able to find it on Amazon, iTunes, Vudu.
Okay.
You can rent it on YouTube. All of the major streaming services. It won't appear on Tubi. I know a lot of people found this on Tubi.
Yeah,
it won't appear on Tubi for probably a few months.
Yeah, I found the original on Tubi. If you want to go watch the original, It's still on there, folks. It's worth a watch.
Yeah.
So, all right. Before we run out of time here, next up, you guys are getting into the vocalizations, and I can't wait for this one because I think this is going to be a great project.
So we actually have, and I know we're moving fast here because we're just releasing our new film, but we're moving right into the Ron Moorhead story, Voices in the Wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
And Ron has been, it's just been an honor because Ron has asked us to do his film and graciously asked us, and we're just like, we've always been enamored with Ron. I mean, he's the Indiana Jones of the Bigfoot world.
That's a good title. That's good for him, yeah. Yeah, he's kind
of the Indiana Jones of the world. I mean, this guy.
yeah, he's flown and everything all over the world, yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna get in depth into those sounds, the past history. We're gonna have interviews with folks that have never been willing to appear on camera. Are going to be talking to us. So I think it's going to be phenomenal. We've got an Indiegogo. If you go to Indiegogo and you want to contribute $5-10, whatever, and the higher up you go, the more involved you are in those credits and different perks and stuff.
Yeah, so Voices in the Wilderness, Indiegogo.
Yeah, and if you like swag, you can get some nice hoodies or T-shirts or mugs too. Don't miss out on the swag.
Yeah, we got some swag.
Yeah.
Marcia Moore, who's in both of our films, told me a story about how she was in Glacier National Park last summer, and she was wearing her Flash of Beauty T-shirt, and there was a couple of native gentlemen. She's out in the middle of nowhere in the park, and she got out of her truck, and they looked over and like, "Whoa, Flash of Beauty, cool!" They knew about the movie, so you never know. You never know. You might make friends.
Yeah. Tobe, what do you got cooking?
Man, what do I got cooking? Well, I just moved to Bigfoot Country up here in the peninsula, and so I'm doing that. And, this Phenomenon thing's a big honor. I'll be emceeing that, staying out in Vernal, Utah underneath the shadow of Skinwalker Ranch. It's going to be a crazy time. And then it's on to other projects. that we can't talk about yet.
Okay. Well, please let me know when the new pods are coming out so I can tell people to go listen to them. I'll be anxiously waiting. I go back and listen to the old Strange Brow stuff while I'm waiting for the new Flash of Beauty pods to come out. So go check out Strange Brow. Toby really did a great run on that program too. Gentlemen, it's been an honor. You guys, I always enjoy visiting. The hour always goes way too quick, and I can't wait to see what comes out next.
Thank you so much, Dan. Really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Folks, Brett, if they need to get a hold of you, if they got questions, or if they want to just be part of the adventure, how can they do that?
The best way to get a hold of us is Facebook, and if you look up A Flash of Beauty Bigfoot Revealed, you'll come across our Facebook page. And either Jill or myself will get back to you. We read every message. We love to interface with folks. We love to hear stories. We love to hear comments. And we're very nice people. So don't be afraid to come and say hi and tell us about your experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you have an encounter and you want to share it with somebody, Brett, Tobe, or Jill would be great people to reach out to. They always want to hear. They always want to hear everybody's encounters, right?
We do. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. If you need an encounter shoulder to cry on, we're here.
All right, you guys have a great evening, and I look forward to seeing everything. A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Paranormal. Go check it out. You'll love it. I've seen it at least 5-6 times now. So thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for tonight's show. I want to thank the fine folks at Revelton. Wow, I think that's the first show we've done with just no commercials. It was worth it, though, wasn't it? Go check it out, A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. I promise you, it's fascinating. I'll see you next time right here on Unknown Files. All right, everybody, thank you. Check it out. I'll see you soon. And let me get this back to, hang on. Hey, everybody, I'm going to send it back to regular programming now. Thank you so much. And if you watched or listened tonight on the app, email me right now, outdoorsdan@mac.com, outdoorsdan@mac.com, and I'm going to give away a pair of heavyweight Norlander alpaca socks for someone that listened to the show tonight. All right? Just email me that, and I'll announce the winner in the morning. Good night, everybody. Thank you. All right, let me say goodnight to there. I said goodnight to there. I'm off of there. I will see you soon. Anita Joe, you can't win because you just won. Congratulations. Thank you, everybody. Let me know if you need anything. Otherwise, I will see you on Saturday. Or, hey, hopefully I'll be sending you an email saying you won tonight. I'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody. This was awesome. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. See ya.